Welcome to our Curious Amalgam, the weekly podcast brought to you by the Antitrust Law section of the American Bar Association. Our Curious Amalgam explores the fascinating and increasingly overlapping world of competition, consumer protection, data protection, and privacy law. Each week, we bring you leading global experts on the most compelling issues of the day. Enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Curious Amalgam. I'm here with Geoffrey Gray, all the way from Ireland's Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. Geoffrey, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Great to be on.
So I don't believe we had anyone from Ireland on last year, and I thought we would start with a more general question for some of our listeners who aren't familiar with the Ireland CCPC. So can you tell us a little bit about the CCPC in general, and then maybe how it approaches antitrust enforcement in a way that may be different from other agencies?
Yeah, no problem. So the CCPC is a competition and consumer protection regulator, which is not always the case for other NCAs, other national competition authorities in Europe. We've got some very similar functions to other competition authorities. So we've a statutory role to review mergers and acquisitions. We take competition investigations in relation to potential cartels and also abuse of dominance investigations. And we also have a consumer protection function which investigates whether there's been breaches of consumer protection law. And in addition to those sort of more enforcement-based functions, we have a role to advocate on behalf of competition and consumer protection. That involves sort of policy studies, advocating with government, and conducting market reviews in addition to that. In terms of what might be slightly different, we also have some explicit roles in relation to product safety. We have to monitor products that come into the country and make sure they're safe for children and safe for use, for example, which is very unusual for a competition authority. And we've been given a significant range of new powers under European data law. And for the competition listeners, the other thing that might interest them is that rather than usually we enforce competition law in relation to cartels in a criminal context, which is similar to what is the current case in America as well.
Great. And it's my very, very limited understanding that the CCPC is changing its approach to merger review. I think I saw in the news that you might be exploring increasing the threshold requirements for deal notifications to the CCPC. So can you tell us a little bit about how the approach to merger review is changing?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, it's really, if you step back and look at what our objectives are, I mean, we have two broad objectives. I mean, one is to identify and to remedy or prohibit where necessary deals which have an anti-competitive effect. But the other is for mergers and acquisitions that are unlikely to have an anti-competitive effect is to get to that view quicker and to reduce costs for businesses. So right. I think we're changing our approach under both of those, so I'll cover them both in turn. So in relation, you mentioned the revenue threshold change, which the government in Ireland is consulting on and we support. That's under that first heading of trying to reduce the burden on businesses that are very unlikely to have deals which could have a material impact on competition in the market. And so, what you've seen is massive increases in inflation in recent years, and the Irish thresholds are still very low, so it's 60 million joint turnover, and each of the undertakings involved have to have a turnover of 10 million. So as you can imagine, we're looking at very small deals under that threshold. So we're trying to move it to 100 million joint turnover and 15 million for each of the undertakings. So that's one thing we're doing. We also introduced a simplified merger procedure in 2020, and the majority of our deals fall under that regime now as well. But we're still really keen that we don't miss deals, that smaller deals, in emerging markets that could still have an important impact on competition. So in 2023, we got a new call-in power, so we can call in mergers that are below the threshold, but they're not required to notify those deals. And so that allows us to make sure that we don't miss any of them. So then covering the sort of, I suppose, the more substantive approach we take in deals, and I think some people have said we've got tougher. I think we've got more rigorous in recent years, and so we're looking at theories of harm that are slightly more innovative. We're examining other kinds of evidence, so internal documents are now becoming a really important part of our investigation process, and Some of the outcomes, I mean, obviously, in terms of looking at outcomes of cases, we are sort of dependent on what cases you review. But, if you look at them, you'll see that we are accepting behavioural commitments much less frequently than we used to. So in 2023 to 2025, the 11 cases that we had that we remedied were all structural remedies. And if you looked at that in the previous 3 years, before that, it would have been a more 50-50 split. So there has been a big change in our approach there. And in 2022, we blocked our first merger in 10 years, which was a deal in the pharmaceutical sector, and we recently prohibited another deal in 2024 as well. So that more rigorous approach can also lead then to us identifying more concerns and having a harder time addressing them. So prohibitions become slightly more likely for some deals in Ireland.
It sounds from some of the changes that are being made to the approach to merger review, though, that the CCPC believes that competition regulation supports economic growth and is making changes to try and facilitate that economic growth in Ireland. Do you agree with that? And what steps or outcomes from the CCPC do you believe have had a positive impact on the Irish economy?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of international discussion about the role of competition regulation in general in terms of promoting economic growth, and certain different nations and different governments have come to different conclusions on it. I mean, thankfully in Ireland, the government is very focused on competitiveness and sees competition policy as very key to driving that. So they've been, really supportive and have been trying to give us new powers where we need them. We mentioned the merger revenue thresholds, and so that's great. I mean, and obviously, yes, I do agree that, competition regulation, effective and efficient competition regulation can have a positive impact on the economy, and as with consumer protection, because, businesses who are competing on a level playing field on price and quality and service, and consumers that are feeling confident to engage with businesses, is all things that promote economic growth, although there's obviously limitations to what we can do as well. So, can certainly believe with that. And then, so the second part of your question was about, whether some of the actions we take that we're particularly proud of that have led to economic growth. And so I'd probably highlight three key ones. So the first is we've had a very significant focus in recent years on public procurement and potential bid rigging in those environments. And so we have one of our first successful criminal prosecutions of a cartel, a bid rigging cartel in school bus transportations in Ireland. So that adds very much in that theme. And then we've been, initiating a project in general to try and identify more of these types of cases as well. So we've built our own bid rigging screening tool, and we'll be getting some new legislation from government, which means that procurement agencies and government departments need to give us that kind of data. One of the second key things that we've been doing is really engaging on sort of competition policy. So ensuring that, other regulations or government legislation is promoting competition and is underlining economic growth. So in early March of 2026, we identified that there was a number of restrictions in the taxi market in Ireland, which were preventing the entry of ride-hailing services like Uber and Bolt. A key was the requirement that all new taxis and all new private hire vehicles had to be wheelchair accessible. So we did a big media campaign in Ireland, which was very popular with a lot of consumers. We did some consumer research and we advocated for the removal of those restrictions to allow the entry into the market. And that's key for economic growth, because what we've been seeing is a significant undersupply of taxis and ride services in Ireland, and that actually has had a really negative impact on the nighttime economy in Ireland, particularly in rural areas.
Oh, wow.
So that's one of the initiatives we've been planning. And the third area, I suppose, is on our consumer protection. So we can continue to take a really strong role in ensuring that companies give the right kind of information to consumers and that they can continue to shop with confidence, which is really important for the economy in general. So one big case we took was against Tesco in Ireland, which is the largest supermarket that we have there, and they were not displaying prices on their loyalty cards, which 80% of their customers use in a way that was clear for customers. Now, I should say that they have a revenue of 4 billion in Ireland, €4 billion a year, and they pled guilty to the prosecution. 80% of their customers use these club cards, and the the remedy of the case, what the court asked the parties to do was to contribute €1,000 to charity. So, we do need a change in terms of our consumer regime there, and we are hopefully going to get that.
So we don't have that long, obviously, with these interviews that we get to host at Spring Meeting. And I want to ask you one more substantive question. What should listeners watch out for in Irish competition and consumer protection in the near future? And from the sound of it, with school buses and taxis, there's a bit of a focus on transportation, at least recently. But I'm curious to know, what should we be looking out for in the future?
So we recently, in 2023, gained some new powers, some new administrative finding powers for competition enforcement infringements, and we're expecting our first cases under those regimes in the coming years. So that's a big watch out for the competition community at large. In Ireland, we've got some constitutional blockers for regulators to take administrative fines. So we have a very independent framework, very novel, very unique. So seeing those cases be successfully passed through and fines to be issued is a really big fundamental plank for Irish competition policy, but it's also really important for the sort of European-wide objective for regulators to have those powers. So that's certainly one that people should watch out for. As I mentioned, we've got an active role in the sort of advocacy unit, making suggestions on behalf of consumers, and I think we're aiming to do significantly more work in those areas. So that's another key thing that we're hoping that people will expect to see: policy initiatives, market studies, those kinds of things. And the last is, I mentioned the consumer case where it was €1,000 contribution to charity. The government in Ireland has provisionally committed to giving us administrative fining powers for consumer enforcement infringements. So that will be a big change for the organisation, and hopefully will bring a lot of successful cases as well.
Well, terrific, Geoffrey. And when we wrap up the show, we try to ask one question that will be a little more lighthearted, allow the audience to get to know you.
Was this not lighthearted?
Of course it was. $1,000 to charity is lighthearted. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you if you could outlaw one everyday annoyance or expression in Ireland, what would it be and why?
I would probably outlaw the expression "having the crack." Because it's something that has got into most Irish people's psyche via osmosis. I mean, and for the listeners who aren't Irish, that means having fun, having a good time, having a joke. But when you come over to the States or other parts, people think that you're talking about doing crack cocaine.
Yes.
So that has got me into trouble many times. So I might outlaw that, and then hopefully I wouldn't get into those awkward situations in the future.
And people use this regularly, day to day.
Having the crack,
the crack.
They don't say doing the crack though, so that's good, but still it causes confusion.
Well, I hope you were having the crack with me today. And that wraps up our conversation for today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Matthew Hall, and I'm with Gustavo de Lima, the interim president of the Administrative Tribunal of the Brazilian competition or antitrust regulator known as CADE. Mr. de Lima has been a member of the CADE Tribunal since April 2022. Mr. de Lima, welcome to our Curious Amalgam.
Thanks so much. It's a great pleasure to be here during ABA and be able to talk a little bit about antitrust and what's going on in Brazil and Latin America right now.
Excellent. Well, on that subject, what are CADE's recent major accomplishments or initiatives that you'd like to explain to our audience?
It's been a busy year. We actually had a lot of good settlements last year. We had something like over 70 different cease and desist agreements, which is a record in our historical series. It's not a record regarding the payment by itself, but the number of agreements it is. We had a very successful deals with Apple regarding Apple Store, with Google Androids regarding smartphones and tablets. So it's a year that we actually had a very good initiatives regarding settlements. Besides that, we had a very strong case last year regarding SCPs. I believe we won one of the first jurisdictions worldwide to actually establish that SCPs, standard essential patents, are going to be treated as antitrust. We have now an ongoing investigation on that. The tribunal already have ruled regarding the principles that should be taken into account by our investigative team. And right now we actually have a second ongoing investigation that I'm not able to disclose at this point, but it sounds promising. Besides that, we have the AI case regarding WhatsApp, a lot of interim measures. So it was a busy year for us.
Yeah, that's an interesting case. That's been publicized a lot, hasn't it? The Meta WhatsApp. Is there anything you want to mention on that in particular?
Yeah, I believe we were one of the first jurisdictions to deal with that. We, Italy, and now the European Commission's taking into account. We have been discussing the case with different authorities in Latin America, and we know for a fact that the regional authorities in Africa are also looking into it. So AI is something that for a while people ask us, what are you going to do in the AI field? And at first we needed to observe what was going on in the market, try to understand a little bit more. But at this point, what we are concerned is the possibility of one company started to getting a lot of different markets because they are the property of one AI technology. So we are concerned regarding leveraging cases. And this is exactly that. Like you have one Meta AI, they have the AI program integrated with the messaging program, which is very popular in Brazil, WhatsApp. That's not the problem. That's not the problem that we were focused on. So a lot of people were asking, oh, that's going to be like a binding, a bundling case. That's not what it is. Our problem was when Meta decided to suspend the services from the competitors. So we had different companies in Brazil that were using AI to have chatbots that are going to be used for service consumer and to dealing with the consumers in an automatic way. Basically what Meta says is, look, even though they were allowing that, they suspended. So in that sense, CADE determined them to go back to the previous policy and actually allow the service to continue. There is a secondary discussion regarding the costs, because in Italy, actually they are paying per message. CADE is still evaluating on that, our technical team. The tribunal didn't issue a decision on that. The technical team is seeing if it's going to be allowed or not. But right now they have to return to the previous policy.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting case. You mentioned a bit on this already, but looking more generally, what do you see as CADE's current enforcement priorities?
Well, one of the priorities we have formally elected for last year and this year was a few services, the oil industry, of course, gas stations. So the whole sector is something we're looking into. We just issued a very deep study in Brazil that was done in city level. And when we do that city level in Brazil, we need to understand there is over 5,000 cities in Brazil. Brazil is a very large country. So we have examined city by city, and we have found out that basically 60% of the market of the gas stations are controlled by the same groups or same families. So we have gone to the city level, examined all the companies that are working, how they are linked, all the partners, all the families, and we have discovered they are very much concentrated. So this is something we're going to look into. Cartel cases in Brazil, especially in the gas sector, are high priority right now. We had a huge cartel case that we just ended the conviction. They were already convicted last year. There was an appeal. The appeal was ruled recently. Other than that, we had our butter and bread, which are the bid rigging cases. This is a strong one for us. We do feel that there is a moral hazard when you allow public procurement to be rigged. So even besides the economy that you're doing, and of course, the taxpayer is going to pay less for the same product if it's done properly, we do believe there is a moral hazard problem that needs to be dealt. We don't want that the purchases that are made by the government, people feel that they are not fair, or people feel that the public services are going to be bribed or something like that. So This is a huge priority for us.
Yeah. Looking at the fuel resale study, does CADE have any ability to, if you like, take market-wide structural measures like in some other jurisdictions, or how could you deal with that 60% concentration that you mentioned?
Well, CADE is very famous to using the soft power, so we try to negotiate. We have imposed structural measures before. We have imposed to Petrobras structural measures regarding refinery selling. We had imposed limitations regarding gas transportation, like They needed to separate operations. Quite recently, they had to put independent board members in one of the companies that was in charge of transporting the gas. So we are allowed, but we prefer to have a soft approach. Like, we want to discuss with companies, we want to propose suggestions and maybe get to agreements. So most of our cases are going to be are ended in settlement.
Okay, that's interesting. Looking slightly further ahead into the future, what are your predictions for future trends in CADE's enforcement approach?
Well, I believe digital economy is the tendency. It's not like CADE is choosing that. I always say it's not an option for CADE, it's an option for the economy. The economy is moving into AI, is moving into a digital environment. And that's not social media. It's a completely different thing. Mm-hmm. What we're talking about is digital economy. So it's a more complex concept that's probably going to influence even the traditional business. So even if you're talking about something that you would think it's brick and mortar, like opening a gas station, that's not the case, because right now we have a case that we're going to settle very closely. We have gas stations having input for price fixing coming from algorithms. We do have it's a small case because it's a small company, but one of the company was providing software information that were used to basically fix prices. We're going to have the settlement to be closed in short 1 to 2 months, I believe. So we're moving to the digital sector. Right now, we're investing a lot in what we call the digital transformation of CADE. So CADE is already a paperless agency. We do not need any type of paper if you have a process going on. But now we're moving forward. Now we're going to launch our own AI, which is called DEA. It's early stages. We already have Cerebro working on. Cerebro is a machine learning software. Now it's 10 years old. We want to give this second step. So DEA is going to be artificial intelligence. It's at least one generation more advanced than Cerebro is. And at some point, we're going to join everything together. Right now, we are going to use DEA for merger cases. We already have a software going on called eNotifica that already is speeding a lot. And DEA is going to be used first for merging cases to help with the administrative job. But we want that probably in the end of the project, they come together, DEA and Cerebro, and then we're going to have the next step for collusion detection, and checking red flags regarding bid rigging.
Okay, interesting. So like other regulators around the world, you're going big into AI to help you do your day job better.
Yeah, and the good part is now it's much cheaper than it used to be, especially if you cut some parts of it. We're trying to not have video, not have audio, not have images. So if you get rid of all that and just deal with data and just deal with text, it's very affordable right now.
Well, thank you. We like to finish with a bit of a personal note. Is there anything you would like to mention to our audience that they wouldn't know about you if they only worked with you on a professional basis?
It could be another podcast on that, but okay. I used to be a Marine officer in the active service. I was to the rank of captain. I work in the intelligence, the Navy intelligence. And besides that, I am a certified scuba diver, so I love that. I don't have the time right now, but I love to scuba diving. And I use it, well, not right now, but I use it to sing and play guitar with rock bands. Now I don't have the time, but fortunately, I will have vacation shortly and come back to sing and play again.
Very interesting. Great activities. Well, thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure having you on here at the Spring
It was an honor, and thanks so much for the questions and the opportunity to come here and discuss these subjects. Thanks so much.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Our Curious Amalgam. I'm Alicia Downey, and with me today is Eduardo Barros, who is the president of Paraguay's National Competition Commission. Last year, I had the pleasure of interviewing President Barros, and I'm very pleased to welcome him back to Our Curious Amalgam.
It's a pleasure to be here, Alicia, with you and participate in this activity. And actually, last year, I was not president. It started in August of last year, my presidency. So there has been a slight change in the position.
Well, congratulations on your elevation. So let's get right into the first question. Over the past year or so, what have been some of the major accomplishments of the Commission?
Something very important that we finished last year was a market study on the meat industry. So the whole chain so we studied production, industry, and commercialization. And the meat industry in Paraguay is very important. It is one of the key elements of the economy. And there are certain situations that are going on. People are concerned because of prices in both ends of the chain. So we decided to start a market study, and that was finished at the end of last year. And recent development, 1 month ago, there was an investigation opened against the industry. 7 factories, meatpacking industries in Paraguay currently are under investigation for possible anti-competitive conducts.
Okay, and the investigation's been public then?
The investigation is public, it's ongoing. In Paraguay, we have, in CONACOM, we have the board of directors, and then we have a chief prosecutor. So the investigation is public, and they are in the process. I cannot comment a lot about that. I really don't know how it's going. But it's something that has generated a lot of expectations on some part of the market, concerns on the other. So we're looking to see how that goes.
Okay. Well, in addition to this enforcement activity, what have been some other priorities of the Commission?
So we've been working a lot on merger control. Merger control is a big. It consumes a lot of time in Paraguay in the Commission. We've been analyzing a lot of mergers, and most of them have been approved without remedies, but we've had some that remedies have been applied. And when that happens, there's always a conversation between the companies and the Commission. It has been interesting. It has been a bit tense at moments, but so far everything has been going very well. And then we've been doing a lot of international collaboration as well, as part of our strategy to strengthen the institution.
Has that increased then over the past year?
Yes, definitely. We've been receiving support from multilateral agencies, banks. We've been working with the World Bank, with IDB, with CAF. We've hosted the Latin American and Caribbean Competition Forum of the OECD in Asunción for the first time in 23 years. That's been going on last October, and that was a great success. We had the presence of the President of the Republic with us, and a lot of foreign authorities participated. So we've really been pushing that international collaboration aspect, and it has worked very well.
Great. And just looking ahead a little bit, what do you see as some major initiatives that you'll be pursuing?
So right now, I don't remember if we spoke about this last year, but if we did, right now we're in the last stage of updating our law. So our law was enacted in 2013. At the time, we were one of the last agencies in Latin America to be born. And now there are some things that we need to change and update in the law. And we're in the final stages of presenting that to Congress. So that's something that we've been working on, and we are really looking forward to it, because that will give us a little bit of more tools that we are missing, that we didn't have at the time. And really looking forward to that being passed so that we can continue with our work.
And has your staff also grown as your level of activity has increased?
Not in the same measure as we would want or need. That remains a challenge. We have grown. Currently, we have a staff of 33 team members. Half of those are work in administration, and half work in, let's say, the mission of the institution. We have been, last year, we finished our org chart, updating our org chart, which was a pending matter we had, an administrative matter. And thanks to that was approved. So now we have around 9 more people that we are going to be able to get into the team. We're working on that this year. I had the hopes of having them already operational this year, but apparently we're going to have work this year and have them at the beginning of next year, but we're working on that.
So human resources is one challenge.
Yes.
What are some of the other challenges you think you're looking at?
So we have another project, which is developing a system that can analyze public procurement bids and the possibility of collusion in the public procurement sector, like Brazil, Spain, and other jurisdictions that have that type of system. And if we're going to work on that, we need to strengthen our technology and the resources that we have to manage that. And we're currently starting a consultancy project to see exactly what we're going to need and how long it will take to develop that system. So besides the human resources, we're going to definitely, if we're going to embark on that side of the road, we're going to need some technical resources as well that will be able to manage, handle. The computers needed for that type of analysis are different than the ones that we have, the servers. And also, we're going to need to connect with other institutions in Paraguay. So we're going to have to develop systems to connect with them. So that's going to require a lot of technical resources as well.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to let our viewers know about what's happening in the Commission?
Yes, we are something that we really wanna focus is try and work together with other regulators in the country and with other government offices, because even though we've grown a lot and we've done, we are better known now than before. There are still other agencies in the government, other regulators that are doing their job and they're not taking into consideration the antitrust world, let's say. So we're trying to engage more with them, and through that collaboration, then we try to promote a competition and what we need for the economy to be even better.
Well, it's great catching up with you. I wish we had more time, but before we let you go, we're going to ask you something we like to ask everybody who comes on our Curious Amalgam, something we're curious about, which is to tell us something interesting about yourself that's completely outside of your professional life. Try not to repeat what you said last year.
No, I remember what I said last year, yeah. I think I remember. But something that has been taking a lot of my personal life right now, are my kids.
Oh, yeah.
So because I have a 15-year-old on one hand and a 4-year-old, both girls, on the other. So the 15-year-old now is starting with the parties and going out at night and all those aspects of social life. So I'm sleeping very little during the weekends and I'm being concerned on other stuff that I wasn't concerned before. And then on the other end of the scope, I have my 4-year-old girl who was a baby just a few years ago, but now she's walking, talking, demanding things. And for some reason, she really wants to be with me all the time and ask me to do the things that I do with me. So that's, taking a lot of my time, and I'm happy of doing that right now.
Well, I'm sure they appreciate the attention. Thank you so much for being on our Curious Amalgam.
It's been a pleasure, Alicia. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of our Curious Amalgam, a competition, consumer protection, data protection, and privacy law podcast. It is produced and shared around the globe by ABA's Antitrust Law Section. The opinions expressed by the participants in this podcast are their own and do not necessarily represent their employer or other organizations. If you like what you heard or would like to become a member of the American Bar Association, please check out what the Antitrust section has to offer at ambar.org antitrust. You can learn more about our podcast at ourcuriousamalgam.com. If you have comments, suggestions, or podcast ideas, please reach out to us at podcast@ourcuriousamalgam.com. Until next time, thank you for listening.